And this whole place is inspired by this crazy boy named Dan Eldon, who there's a self-portrait up there. And the reason I wanted to establish Creative Visions was to celebrate the spirit, the irrepressible spirit of my son Dan, who was born in England, grew up in Africa, and became a photojournalist for Reuters news agency. Filled 20 journals with artifacts, with drawings, with just sort of messages about life that we have included on our walls, we've turned into prints. And it's a philosophy of life that I just wanted to share with other people to see whether it might ignite their spirits in the same way.
This organization was inspired by the life of your son, Dan. Tell us about Dan and team spirit and how it guides Creative Vision.
Thank you for that. That's a really interesting question. I believe that sometimes we can communicate or interconnect with the energy of somebody who's no longer physically alive. And people have different belief systems. I have just had some incredible experiences that would indicate to me that I have what I call a team spirit around me. And whether it's true in the literal sense or not, I feel that energy of creativity and compassion, of forgiveness, of humor, of the sense that you don't want to just sit down and wait for things to happen to you. You want to roll up sleeves, get off your backside and go and do something amazing. So that's the energy that fuels me, and that energy seems to have a way of fueling other people as well. I call it a spark.
You've gone from watching your first son die at an early age to seeing the birth of your grandchildren with so many experiences in between. What advice would you give me as a young woman in today's society?
I think the most important thing is to hang on to your sense of self. There's a book called Awakening Ophelia, which talks about young women aged about 12 who almost go to sleep for 4 or 5 years, and then maybe they wake up around college. And there can be so much pressure on kids, boys and girls, young men and women, to conform, to be like everyone else, to be fearful of bullying or just being different. And it's really hard to be who you really are, but ultimately there's no other way to be. And that's a lesson that we all have to learn ourselves. And I can sit here and spout all sorts of things and you're going to think, boring. But that's probably the biggest thing that I could say to you, is really try to be who you really are. And the more that person that you can claim and be, the more interesting you're going to be, and you're going to attract other people who see that light and want to be with that person, not the mask that we tend to put on ourselves to sort of pretend we're someone else. Did that make any sense at all?
Yes.
A little bit?
Yeah. Our Teen Press theme this year is Star Stuff. What in your mind makes someone shine?
Oh boy, I love that question. You know, there is a light in people, and you can see whether people have. Everybody has the light, okay? But sometimes it's like there's a bushel basket. This is an old metaphor. A bushel basket is put over our light, or we kind of don't want people to see it because we'd rather disappear. I think that the word enthusiasm helps brighten people's light. And the word enthusiasm comes from two Greek words. It means en plus theos, which means it with God. So that God force, that wonderful energy of love and excitement comes through us. And when we're enthusiastic, our eyes shine, and then we start to shine. So I personally think that enthusiasm is a key characteristic of charisma and shininess.
And finally, an F-word question for you.
Oh now I'm going to blush.
Could you tell us about your F-word?
Okay, this is really embarrassing. All right, I did a TED Talk, and I decided that how was I going to get people to watch it, really, because there's so many TED Talks. So I decided to do it about an F-word, but it wasn't what you think. It's actually about forgiveness. You hang on to old bad stuff about other people or about yourself, you just get weighted down. It's unbelievable. And Bishop Desmond Tutu says, To not forgive is like taking poison and waiting for the other person to die. So forgiveness is really not about ourselves, about the other person. It's really about ourselves. And it releases us from being a victim. We can become the victor. It stops us from creating a whole, cycle of revenge that can go on for generations. So yeah, check out my TED Talk and find out a little bit more about the F-word.
So, how could people practice this F word?
The tricky one, sometimes it's easier to forgive something that's like far in the distance. Like I have forgiven, I really truly have, the Somalis who killed Dan, and it was a hard journey for me to make. It wasn't like overnight, but I could forgive the Somalis who killed Dan. But sometimes on the freeway when I'm going and somebody is driving me crazy, or it's hard to just say I forgive you. But I think I've tried to practice that and scream, I forgive you, and it makes me laugh often. But I think in life, the hardest person to forgive is sometimes ourselves. We can forgive others, but like we look back and think, oh, I've just been so foolish or so dumb or so, boring or so annoying or whatever it is, or the shame or blame that we have often in life. So for me, the journey to forgiving me was as hard as forgiving the Somalis. Just takes practice.
And finally, what finger do I use when flipping the bird of forgiveness?
What figure?
Finger.
Oh, that's interesting. How do we make an F? Let's see, maybe it's like... I think we can start a whole new trend here, don't we? Yeah. What is the F? How do we make an F? Wait, let's all practice. What do you think it's going to be? Like that? They're going to get so confused. It's hard to do that when you're driving, but maybe there's another way of trying. But I love the question. I think we should have a competition. Yeah.
Absolutely.
All right.
Thank you.
Probably like this. That's probably the way to do it.
Thank you so much for talking with us today, Kathy.
Thank you. I really appreciate you being here. And you guys are so far ahead of me. And I was a journalist for 10 years, but I don't think I've ever asked a single question that was as good as any one of your questions. So thank you. I'm honored.
Thank you so
And I'm going to run this on my Facebook.